Okay.
So, hi everyone. I want to welcome you to another interview for Black.Queer.Alive. I'm here with Brand Pharell, who submitted to the call and gave a really beautiful response, one that I was really motivated and inspired by. Hi, Brand. Welcome to
Well,
Black.Queer.Alive. Yay. Um, wh- what made you respond to the call? Like, what was that initial feeling?
actually, right now I'm on disability. I broke my foot, so I've been sitting around a lot, and I usually don't check stories, but I've been checking people's stories, and somebody had posted it in their stories. And when I read it, I said, okay, this sounds like me. So I was like, let me go and see what exactly is being asked. And when I read it, I said, I think I have a okay response to this. Let me send it out and see if you think so. And you agreed that I seemed like the right piece for that particular puzzle. So I was just like, let's see how this goes, and I don't mind sharing. So
Oh, thank you so much. Um, let's just jump into it. What's your name, your age? Occupation is such a weird word. So I've been saying if you don't feel comfortable saying your occupation, what motivates you? Like, what are your passions? And what are your pronouns?
um, okay, my name is Brand Pharell. I'm 41. My occupation is I am an overnight supervisor for a health food store, and my pronouns are he, him, and that's it.
Nice, nice. If you feel comfortable, tell me about your gender expression and your how you sexual identify.
My gender expression is I don't like labels, but I guess I identify as a man, just a trans man, um, and I'm queer.
Okay. In your response, you put that you didn't identify as queer until like 2 years ago. What
Yeah,
what was that process?
the process was for I don't know. I'm not going to speak for anybody else, but for myself, I feel like at first I wasn't sure if I was attracted to the same sex or if it was a admiration because when you're trans, sometimes seeing something that you want, you can't decide if it's coveting that
Hmm.
or if attraction to. And it took me a while to figure out that it's a little bit of both. And I was okay with that. Before that, I really didn't, I wouldn't say I identified as straight. I identified as if I like you, I like you. And if you like me back, I like you back. So queer seems to be the best box to fit that particular way that I identify. I think liking people and not really worrying about what gender they identify as is where I fit. And I don't think that there's a word that I feel like better encompasses that than queer.
Mm, it's a beautiful answer. Um, Also, in your response, I thought this was very interesting because I feel like right now there's still a lot of work to do. I think in the LGBTQIA plus community as regarding like understanding transness, but we're seeing more and more that children are identifying their transness at a very young age, and there seems to be like processes and systems in place that allow them to embody their transness. And in your response, you said you didn't transition to your 34. What was that like for you? Like deciding at 34, like, hey, this is me. I'm going to make this move.
Um, it was a thing that I had visited earlier in my early 20s. I went through some therapy for some other things when I was, if this isn't oversharing, when I was 8, I was raped. I was kidnapped and raped. And for a long time, I wasn't sure if the way that what I was attracted to had something to do with the trauma that I had at an earlier age. So when I was around 20, I was reading a lot of books about trans men, watching documentaries, and it was something that resonated with me, but I couldn't figure out if it was just a voyeuristic, oh, I like this, I like people being able to be themselves, or if it was something I identified with. And when I went to the therapy, in my early 20s, that particular therapist had asked me, do you feel like this is something that you are? And I was like, I'm not sure, but it had always kind of been there. Um, when I was 34, it was one of those things where it was like, I literally woke up one morning, it was 3 days before Christmas that year. And I was like, I have to be myself. And I never had the relationship a lot of people have where they're like, oh, I felt like I was a boy, or I only identified with being a boy. My particular situation was I knew I wasn't going to live the rest of my life as a woman. I didn't dislike being identified or viewed or seen as a woman, but I knew that this is more of where I needed to be. So literally from the 21st of December of 2012, by the time the 12th of 2013, I had already got my first shot of tea. It was literally that quick. I found a therapist. She agreed with me. She sent me to an endocrinologist, and it happened that fast. I didn't have the same thing where they're like, have you been living as a man for a year before? It was literally 2.5 weeks, and I went from I'm doing it, and it happened. So, and I haven't looked back yet. I've never been more comfortable in my whole life. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Where do you find home?
Um, I find it now with my niece and nephew the most. I feel like it's a feeling more than an actual place. I find it with them. I actually touched on it a little bit, but right now I'm stage 1 cancer. I went from 4 to 1 with a lot of holistic stuff. And I moved to North Carolina about a year and a half ago to be closer to my niece and nephew because I felt like I needed that. I wasn't sure how my life was going to go, and I've been able to turn it around. Think whomever you believe in, but they embodied that the most. And then, of course, like actual family. My mom passed away a little over 5 years ago, and until her passing, I really wasn't close with my dad. And now he's like somebody that I can talk to about anything. And we're a lot closer than we ever were my whole life. So that relationship, and of course, my family, my sister, my niece, my nephew, my brother-in-law, and my best friend who lives with me. Um, that's family, those people.
That's home. If you feel comfortable, if you feel comfortable or not, please tell me. If you don't, uh, it seems like your body has gone through so many. I mean, I think the word is transitions, but between transitioning, um, in your gender expression and then in your cancer, what has been your relationship to your body over these past couple of years?
Um, I know for me, I'm things happening to my body is I have that relationship, but as far as like how I present, I it's definitely changed. There was that in the beginning, and wanting to be hyper masculine. Now I've kind of turned it into just enjoying the fact that I have a body that's letting me be here. So it's changed from wanting to present to other people a certain way to just me loving it because I get to have it and I'm still here and it is working for me and it doesn't have too many quirks with it right now. But just being able to have it and be able to use it and it respecting me and me respecting it. It's been, yeah, I went through that super hyper masculine. I want to be muscle man and all that. Now I'm just like, I can get up, I can walk, I can move. Uh,
Mm,
my clothes fit. Our relationship is working real good right now. So it's definitely that relationship has transitioned from one of worrying about how other people see me to now being like, ooh, I like what I see when I look in the mirror, and we are working for one another, and that's it. So it's
wow,
definitely.
that's inspiring. I hope, I wish that for anyone, just anyone, just like I get up, I look in the mirror, I'm happy with how I feel and how I look. That's inspiring. What are you searching for?
Um, since the passing of Chadwick Boseman, I've been having some definitely eye-opening experiences. I am now stage 1 of colon cancer. So just hearing that made me appreciate the fact that I'm here. Was like a look in the mirror of where I could have been. And just mostly like an appreciation for, you know, just being here. And what I don't want to do is cry because I've been crying a lot the last couple of weeks. But
This is a safe space to cry if that comes up for you. Um,
can you ask me the question again? I want to try and answer it a little better.
yeah, no, of course, of course. What are you searching for?
A peace. Like I went through a phase where I was ready to, because my body just wasn't working with me, not be here, and to be in a place now where my body's actually somewhat reacting to me the way I need for it to, and that's given me a calm that I didn't know that I even needed until I've gotten here.
Mhm.
But the fact that I'm actually feel like I'm going to live, because there was about a 2-year period where I wasn't sure if that was going to happen, just knowing that I'm actually here and it feels like I'm going to be here a while, that gives me an inner peace. Like, and if I was to cry, which I might,
Okay.
it would be because I just appreciate the fact that I've gotten to this point, because it wasn't always like this. So.
Wow. You mentioned Chadwick Boseman. Are there any other people in addition to him or just him? Just I don't know. That you that like where you see yourself, like whether it's a movie or a TV show, is there someone that you looked at and said, I identify with that person?
No one in particular. I think that the Chadwick Boseman thing was the fact that he passed from something that I'm actually struggling with.
Mhm.
That he was a black man and he was only 2 years older than me.
Okay.
Um, so those things that kind of resonated because I could see myself in that
Mm.
experience that he must have had. Um, but other than that, maybe bits and pieces of people. For the most part, I don't know how to say this without sounding like my self-esteem is through the roof, but I've always, even before transitioning, I've never had like a self-esteem issue. It
Mhm.
was more of needing to transition because I needed to see myself actualize the way that I had started to see myself in my head, but I never felt like I've never had a suicidal moment or I've gotten so down to where I couldn't lift myself back up. And I knock on wood and thank the Most High that I'm able to say that I have never had self-esteem issues like that where I felt that down. But for the most part, I see myself, uh, especially being able to outwardly express myself with like tattoos and piercings and however I want to have my hair. I've always been like this since I was like 10, and very lucky that I had parents that let me express myself. So um, anybody who's super free, something in that I identify with. So whomever that is to who might see this or hear this.
How
Um,
many tattoos and piercings do you have?
um, right now, not too many piercings. If you had caught me about 2 months ago, I had about 30 piercings. Um,
What? That's a
I
lot.
had 15 in my nose. If anybody ever checks out my Instagram page, you can see the evolution. I go through phases where I want a bunch and I'll go get them, and then I don't want them. But I've been getting pierced since I was 12. I got straight A's when I was in 6th grade. My mom said I could get my nose pierced if I got straight A's. So I got straight A's. So I got my first piercing then. But
Nice.
and I have no idea how many tattoos I have. They're everywhere. So
I
a lot.
noticed that you had just correct me if I'm wrong, but you had tattooing on your face.
Yes.
What was
Yes.
the inspiration for that?
I like a lot of the Maori people of New Zealand. They have facial tattoos, and I like the heavy black work. And not to be disrespectful to their traditions, because a lot of that's through traditions. Um, I decided to do different things, but it was inspired by that, and a lot of like African scarification and you know, a lot of the Omni tribes and Omni Valley tribes and all that stuff. Just, I love the fact that rites of passage have to do with, you know, modifications of the body and things like that. So
That's dope.
my opinion on all those things.
That's dope. I like that. I like that a lot. Um, when do you feel most safe?
Right now, I find a lot of safety in when I'm able to, with the broken foot, I can't do it as much, but I would walk about 2 or 3 miles every day. And there's something about being in nature. Here in North Carolina, there's a lot of trails, and I would just walk the trails. But there is something that would just make me feel at home. Just there's one particular part of the trail, and it has like a tree canopy,
Mm.
and just being there, I would feel like if I could live here, I would live here. Like it's like a like leaves hugging you. I just would, I wouldn't even notice it until other people would say, but whenever I'd be there, I just would be smiling. So
Mm.
there's some to that. And right now, if I could get there, if I could walk there and just sit there, I think it would recharge me. So
Nice. I'm processing. Okay. When's the first time that you realized you were Black?
um, I was in kindergarten, and we lived in a place called Mission Viejo, which, for reference, is um, not too far from Calabasas, where like the Kardashians and all those people live.
In California?
California.
I know where Mission Viejo is, yeah.
So I was, my parents still, they own, my dad owns maybe about 10 homes now, but at the time that was one of the first homes that they bought when I was young. And I was in kindergarten, and I was the only Black kid in there.
Mm.
And I knew I was Black. Thank God I had parents that were just like, you're going to see people who look different than you. It doesn't mean anything, but you are this and know this. And having somebody that looks like you telling you that is one thing, but then going to school and having another 5-year-old kid call you a nigger will definitely have that jump out. And I think that was the first time I knew that the way I looked and that word had a connotation on my complexion and how I looked. And I knew then, oh, this is what, you know, it's funny when hindsight you look at it, you don't realize it's, oh, what your parents taught you, this is a manifestation of that.
Mm.
But having a little white kid tell me, you know, nigger, and me realize, oh, this has to do with how I look.
What was your response in that moment when that child, their classmate, called you that?
Um, I don't even know if it was shock. It was just like trying to process what it meant, but I knew it wasn't good. I couldn't say that right away. I knew, oh, this is a connotation. Hindsight will tell me that, but it wasn't a good feeling. It was must not be good. And funny enough, it probably took that happening 3 or 4 more times before I said something to my parents, and then having him say something to the school. But not a not a good connotation. It wasn't a good feeling, but I mean, it was so long ago that the only thing I can say was maybe shock.
We touched upon this slightly a little bit at the beginning, but is there a particular memory where you were where you realized you were queer? Like, did I ask? I can't. I didn't. I don't think I asked that. If there's like a memory, like, hey, this is me, or just has this always been a continuous, expression or feeling?
Um, I think I was doing. I listened to a lot of audiobooks when I'm not able to just like read a book. I go through phases where like actually reading a book is like, I can't do this, but I can listen. And I was listening to somebody in a book explain what their definition of queer was, and it was kind of like an Oprah aha moment. And I was like, that's me. Like, I don't identify as what somebody would say a cisgender man, as straight is. I know I'd like people's energy, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with their genitals. So there, and maybe about, yeah, maybe about 2.5, 3 years ago, when listening to that book and having that moment and feeling comfortable enough to say, okay, this is who I am, and you know, knowing that queer encompasses it better than saying like bisexual. Like, I
Mhm.
feel like too much of a lot.
That makes a lot of sense. I think the definition of queer is expansive. Like there's not like that one definition or like that one pinpoint that you could really put your finger on. And because it's like an active word, it has space to grow. Uh and I like, for me personally, I like how it shifted from more of a negative connotation to more of like a positive. It's like we've reclaimed
Exactly.
queerness in a way that makes us feel safe, that makes us feel able to communicate ourselves through our language.
Yeah, you said that perfectly. I think what I liked the most about it was that you mentioned that it was kind of negative and it's been turned around into an encompassing and a very good descriptor of how a lot of people identify.
Nice, nice. What would you say to your 12-year-old self?
I would say to my 12-year-old self that the fact that I like strawberry shortcake and Legos and Thundercats, all that fine, and it's okay. And when you get older, you'll still like all those same things, and it'll still be okay. And it doesn't make you less or more than, because I had people be like, you act like a boy because you like this, and that's really girly, and you're not real girly, or you're not this, and all that shit's fine. Like, however you feel, whatever you like, it's okay to like it. Whatever you want to be, however you're feeling, none of it's wrong. And I
Mm,
think there, a time then where I would play with Legos a lot and sit and play with them and think, I don't feel like how my friends say they feel, and I wonder if something's wrong with me, and be able to come back now and say nothing was ever wrong. You're totally fine. However you're feeling, I wish I wish to have been a kid now to have the ability to be like, oh, let me go on YouTube and find somebody else if I can't find somebody who actually lives in my neighborhood, or
mm,
things like that. Or being able to express to my parents that I feel that way and know that neither one of them was going to judge me, because they never did. I was so surprised. I was so shocked when I told my parents, and they're like, okay.
wow. I love hearing stories where parents are like, okay, cool. We just gonna move on with this. We're gonna move through this period or this time with you. That's nice. Um, what would you like to hear from your 60-year-old self?
You're here. I still, even though I'm getting better and remission, I can actually see it at the end of the tunnel. It's a new feeling being like, oh, I'm still going to be here. I'm still, I can still say a lot of time I'm in the mindset of, I don't know if I'm going to be here. Kind of like one of those, you make a habit type of thing, and I'm trying to break that habit. But mostly you're here and you made it. Um, 60 should not be old for somebody, but when you're 41 and you weren't sure for 3 or 4 years if you're going to make it, 60 is a milestone. So mostly that I made it to 60. So
Congratulations on making it this far. I appreciate you for sharing your story. Thank you. Next question. How do you experience love? And this could be from yourself, from your community, or from the world.
for love for myself, I can say being kind to myself. I make a habit of, um, I try not to nitpick things that I can say that may bother me some. Um, Mostly just being kind to myself. I try and have a moment at least once a day where maybe when I'm brushing my teeth or washing my face, that I tell myself, I like you, and I'm happy that I get to know you, and um, your hair looks good today, or um, you know, just something kind to myself, and then taking the time to smile at myself. I find that now I'm getting to know myself again. It's one of those things that are thinking back on like, oh, 20-year-old me, and being like, I'm glad I got to know that person, but I like this one better. um, those types of things. So that's love for myself. And from other people, it's taking the time to remember that people have their own things, and um, however they, for example, I have a sister who has just some mental issues, nothing that stops her from living, but she does a thing where she's down on herself a lot. And when I interact with her, I will tell her to stop and tell herself that she loves herself. And then I tell her that I love her. And then she'll tell me back, I love you more. Um, that's our thing between each other, telling each other that I love you more. And just that's the love between she and I. And then my dad is that relationship we really had in a relationship until my mom passed. And maybe over the last 3 years, we've gotten really close. And just talking and laughing with one another is how we share love. So at least once a week, we'll talk for about 2 or 3 hours on the phone, and we mostly just laugh. And
Nice.
he'll say, I love you, son. And I'll say, I love you too, Dad. And
Mm.
that's our love, because up until my mom's passing, I couldn't tell you if I remembered my dad telling me that he loved me before that. I'm sure he did, but I couldn't tell you a thing of that. So that the fact that we even share that with each other and laugh, that the experience is love between us. And then I live with my best friend, and we just tell each other we love each other all the time, because we do. I couldn't live without her. So
I'm sorry. Now I'm getting, I'm getting a little emotional. That's so beautiful.
yeah, it
Uh,
was really difficult with my dad, and he got remarried now, um, almost a year ago, and I was his best man, and we took pictures together. I'm gonna cry, but I could be proud of me, and he wanted me there, and it was. But the relationship we had before to where it is now, just to have that, yeah.
I'm so happy that you have that, and I'm. I hope others hear this. Thank you for sharing that with me, and I hope others hear this and know that 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 love is possible just at
I
any
hope so.
point of your
Like
life.
it's one of those things that I have to remember, and in moments like this, like, to appreciate it, because, especially being trans and black, so many stories I hear are never positive, and I sometimes it makes me hesitant to share with people that I didn't have a lot of the problems that people have, and that he was the person that I thought I was going to have pushback from, and he has no shit been one of the most supportive. When my mom passed, I had only been transitioning maybe about a year and a half. And when I got there, I hadn't seen him that much. So we hadn't seen each other, and I wasn't sure how he was going to be. And he hugged me, but at the actual funeral, my mom didn't want to have like a wear black. She said we had to wear colors and celebrate her. So
Yeah.
um, a lot of the people who came didn't know that I had transitioned, and he held my hand and walked me around, and anybody who side-eyed me, he like was like, not here. If that's how you're going to be, you got to go.
That
And
so
it
happy.
was it was one of those things that I never would have thought, but it was one of the best feelings ever to know that somebody really just, they really did love you unconditionally, because I wasn't sure he even loved me up until then. You know? So
That story makes me so happy. Thank you for sharing that, Brad. It's so
thank you.
fun. These are the stories we need to hear because I'm so fucking emotional now. I'm sorry. Um,
Okay.
you're right. It's every time we see ourselves in these stories, it's always from a standpoint of phobia, of transphobia or homophobia. And I feel like hearing your story and hearing that moment between you and your father really reinforces that this community, the love is there. Like we really want to hold each other down. There is healing that is happening, actively happening. So I really hope people hear this and feel inspired to continue to be themselves, because the love is there. It's there. and as much negativity as the the media likes to perpetuate, there's still an undercurrent, overcurrent of positivity.
Yes, I really wish that there was somebody that would show it that way to normalize it a little bit more, because everybody's experience isn't coming out to their parents and being misgendered, or I don't really like the term, but dead named, or those things that I always see. I can't say I've ever seen a story that's like mine. I always hear that there was pushback, or somebody was asking, "Are you sure?" or "You're always going to be my daughter," when you are telling somebody that you're a son, or using the wrong pronouns. When I tell you that my dad, my whole life, called my sister my name, and my name my sister's name, he's just bad with names. He messes up his own.
Yeah.
What he doesn't do is never calls me by my previous name, and never misgenders me. He's so good about that, and I'm the type of person that, especially in the beginning, um, I never really tripped on people who knew me calling me by the wrong name or the wrong pronouns, because I know it takes people time. They were really great about not doing so, but it was never something that bothered me. But the fact that everybody who was important to me took the time to make sure that they were really good about it, people need to see that that can happen, that people can just be supportive. It doesn't have to be, Tyler Perry-ish, or
Yes.
something real wild where it's just, you're going to be this and you don't know what you're talking about, or this is a phase. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. It could be people saying, I see you the way you see you, and that's great, and we're both okay with that. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, if you could change your identity, would you? And I like to add on to this question, I'm Mimi today, but tomorrow I really just wish I was an octopus. If there's any other experience or expression that you could take on, would you? If not, it's cool.
Mm. I don't know if I'd want to stay in this identity, but I think, and I don't even know if it's identity, I think it would just be something to experience. I would like to do drag now, and just to see what it's like. I never was, I was probably a lot more feminine than a lot of people. I don't think I was technically even a tomboy prior to transition, but I would like to experience what it would be like to show my more feminine side now. I think it's that I read very masculine to a lot of people, and I absolutely have no problem with being softer, but having an experience of maybe over accentuating those things how drag queens do, I would like to experience.
Cool. Who's your favorite what's my question? Who's your favorite drag queen?
I like Shea Coulee a lot.
Yes, I love Shay.
I'm kind of back into all that since I've had a lot of time. I've been off work for almost 2 months because of my foot being broken, and I had watched Drag Race when it first came out, and then I kind of stopped, and now I kind of been binging seasons, so I'm getting reacquainted with the people. But there's just something about Shea Coulee that I like a lot.
Shea Coulee is one of the best queens to ever do it. So I'm fortunate. I've seen all the seasons, and I know some of the queens who participate on the show. I've had like an opportunity to meet them and run with them, or do a gig with them. And Drag Race is just a phenomenal show. Like RuPaul's, he's a little problematic.
Yeah, I already know, and I'm like,
We
get
still
it
love
together.
you. Yeah, we still love you, RuPaul, for who you are and what you do. But what season are you on right now?
I'm just now getting to season 5. Um, what I've been trying to do is watch like the behind the scenes, and then I'll get on a tangent where I'm on somebody's YouTube page, and then I get off. So it's like there's so much information. It's like sensory overload with the show, but just getting into all of it is just, to me, it's amazing. I don't think that a lot of the queens get the credit that they deserve for what they do to to give us that, and we only get a little piece of it. But I think it's amazing, and I'm glad I rediscovered it in this time off. So,
What would be your drag name?
I've never thought about it. Probably something with like thunder in it. I really like the Thundercats. I don't know exactly what, and I'd want to have like one of those really, really. Some of the names that the queens have like are amazing. I don't know. That's a good question. That's something I need to think on, because if I ever want to embody it, I do need a name. But at the moment, it's kind of slipping my mind. But something catchy.
Okay, I like that. I like that. Is there anything else in this moment that you really want to express that I may have not touched upon?
Um, Not that I think of off my head. Just be kind to yourself. People sounds corny. It's very cliche, but when you do it and it works, it can change you. So be kind to yourself.
Nice. I'm gonna end our recording right here.